Hello, Valuation Masterclass students. I just wanted to go over something I saw recently. Today, I am judging in a case competition, and I have to review lots of cases and study them and see what the business ideas are, and most importantly, what the financials are. Now, what's interesting in these cases that I want to show you is that every single one, let's look at, there's one right there, that's the financial statements. Almost every single one of these have two major errors, mistakes, problems with valuation. The first one is, by the time they get to year 5, of course, they're going to forecast that revenue is going to be amazing because nobody in the world has seen this amazing product that we have and everybody's going to buy it and rush to it. Okay, that's cool. That's part of what the madness of the startup is and the entrepreneur. I know the feeling. But the next thing that they do is oftentimes have a very unrealistic net profit margin. Now, right now I've been working on a new portion for my class where I'm looking at 17,000 companies across the whole world and calculating margins and things like that. So I just want to tell you an example of what I found recently in this data. And the first thing I found is that overall, 17,000 companies over a 15-year period had a net profit margin of 5.5. Now, some industries like real estate had almost 18, and some industries like industrials had 3.9. So they vary. But, let's say if you're forecasting a profit margin considerably above, 6 to 10%, you're probably in an aggressive area. So here is one student where they forecasted a 63% profit margin at year 5. Possible? Highly unlikely. Now that happens to be in the infotech space, so we can look at infotech and see the infotech space has a net margin of 7%. That means Facebook and all the other infotech companies, 7% net margin. Could it be double or maybe triple, 21? Possibly, if you had an amazing product. Now, let's go on to this this team's submission, and I want to look at the next big mistake is that students say, well, we're going to raise capital. We're going to raise money and bring it into the company. We're going to use it to expand our company. But then what ends up happening is that they don't anticipate the spending that they're going to have to do, the assets that they're going to have to purchase, and instead they just keep that money in cash. Now let's just look at those global 17,000 companies, and we can see that 10% of the total assets of these global businesses is in cash. Now, it could be as high as 20% in infotech space because they got a lot of cash, and as low as, let's say, 5% in the utilities because they tend to be regulated. But here is a company where they predicted 99% of the total assets in the 5th year of their forecast. 99% will be cash. Let's look at a couple of other companies here that I can see the forecast in. 1 second. And let's get to the next one. The next one shows a net profit margin in year 5 of 55%. Come on. That's probably optimistic. The next one is if we look at that same forecast for balance sheet in the 5th year, they forecast that 92% of the total assets of the business are cash. Wait a minute, if it has so much cash in the business, why am I investing money in it? It's just a cash machine. Why? They don't have to spend money on any assets? No, they do. They're just not forecasting it very well. Now, here's a company where their forecast for the 5th year net profit margin is 33%. That's plausible. Good idea, first to the market, well run. But their cash to total assets is 74%. No. That's a major mistake in valuation. Let's look at the last one before I let you go. The last one has a net profit margin in year 5 of 15%. Okay, now we're talking reasonable. But when you get to their balance sheet, total cash as a percent of assets are you ready for it? Wait for it. It's a 96%. So we can see a major mistake that most people make in the startup community is very high profit margin that they forecast in the future years. And the second major mistake is that they don't forecast any assets. Basically, they just raise cash and they don't say we're going to need equipment and computers or machines. None of those assets that they think, that they're thinking about, that they put into their balance sheet. And that's where I oftentimes say that You know, a lot of times when you're forecasting, you need to forecast your fixed assets very well and very clearly and think about them carefully. But don't forget that there's a second level of investment in any company, and that's your working capital. And let's keep it simple. For the asset side of the balance sheet, that's simple: accounts receivable and inventory. Make sure you add up your accounts receivable and your inventory and call that an investment amount, and add up all of your fixed assets and intangible investments, and there's your investments. So have a great day and don't make these mistakes.